Welcome to another backstage interview at the Metals Investor Forum. It's already the second half of October, and I'm checking in with Galen McNamara of Summa Silver. Galen, you're sort of in a similar position as many CEOs and geologists that I talk to these days, which is that you've had drills turning on your project for a few months now, but you're yet to get the numbers to just get numbers back from the lab. Why don't you run us through the targets that you're testing and what you know about what you've hit so far, because then we can have some context for when those numbers do come out.
Sure, Gwen, that sounds great, and thanks for having me on again. It's always good to talk to you. First of all, I should just clarify that we've had a few results. We've had results for 3 holes,
right?
And of course, the best one being a very, very strong high-grade discovery hole of 3,760 grams per ton silver equivalent over 2.5 meters, but that was within about 600 grams per ton silver equivalent over 18.5 meters. And just to refresh people's memories, this is at an old mine that was a very large producer back in the early part of the 20th century and has never really seen the light of day before, hasn't been given a fair shake, hasn't been drilled before, and has sort of fallen by the wayside. So that's the focus of the first target. And the project, of course, is on the eastern side of the Tonopah district, halfway between Reno and Vegas on the highway. And this is one of those famous old mining districts that was, part of really what drove the early growth of the U.S. and especially the Western U.S., going back to 1900 and when it was discovered. But again, there's a lot of these places out there that, have that rich discovery history, that rich production history that haven't really had a modern shake, haven't had a modern look. And that's where, Summa steps in, and we were lucky enough to secure this property and are now drilling it for the first time, potentially ever in much of the property, not all of the property, but much of the property. So that's where we're at to start.
Right. And so you've been doing drilling in and around the mine. And like you say, you've had some results from there, which are exciting. And there's more results yet to come from that area. But that's not the only area that you're testing as well.
That's right. Of course. So that is one of 4 areas that we're broadly testing. That is the area that's closest to the past workings. So say, maybe the lowest on the risk end as far as where we're confident we're going to hit and not necessarily what we're going to hit, but of course we're very optimistic. There's 3 other interesting targets. The first one being the Murray target on the western side of the property, and this target starts just 300 meters away from where our friends at Blackrock Gold hit a really, really big hole in their first hole on their project on their side of the property boundary of 29 meters of 965 grams per ton silver equivalent. So that'll probably be one of the best holes of the year, if I were to bet, not having, really compiled everything in detail myself. But the upshot for us is that, hey, there's veins on their side of the property. There's veins on our side of the property. You can walk underground over the property boundary in the old mines. And now it's just a matter of seeing, how many ounces are on, both sides. And I think how many ounces are together in the entire district is actually
right. Yeah, for sure. And so you've tested that area. And then are you also going to the east on the other side of that key fault where the offset from the known system has never been found?
That's right. So back to the main part of the mine, called the Belmont mine, where we put out our first results just recently. The veins there ran into this fault zone called the Halifax Fault. And really interestingly, some of the best veins in the district, arguably the best vein in the district, the Belmont vein, gets offset by that fault, and the old time miners lost it in the fault, not really able to find it on the other side, except for a few really interesting snips. So another part of the focus here is stepping out on the far side of that fault and trying to see what could be out there. We know the system is out there. We can see all the alteration. There's a few snips and some veins out there. It's just a matter of finding, if and where, that main part of the system exists out there. And if we can get onto that, well, that's possibly a major game changer. Just to put things into perspective, the Tonopah district itself, big picture, produced 175 million ounces of silver and almost 2 million ounces of gold at grades of about 1,250 grams per ton silver equivalent. And it all more or less stopped when it ran into that fault. Well, stepping out on the other side of that fault, there's another 5 kilometers of exploration potential that has the smoke on it, where we know that some part of a system continues because, like I was saying, there's snips of grade, there's grade alteration, and hey, I mean, if we can get onto something big on the far side of that fault, the sky really is the limit for what the potential is, as far as I'm concerned. So that's another exciting, more of a moonshot type look. But I think that's going to be a matter of really honing in on the best areas using some cutting edge geological methods. But that's something that I'm pretty excited about, and I think the geologists that I work with on this are probably the most excited about that, because everyone that gets a chance to work on this, myself included, I'm a geologist, wants a chance to be able to make a big discovery in a district like this, because it is so famous. It is so famous.
So then what order might these results come back in if people are watching your news flow? What do you think
that's a
next?
good question. We're kind of shuffling around what gets drilled first and what gets submitted to the lab. So I think it'll be a nice spread overall for. But for me right now, I should say, the focus really is going to be on following up the results at the Belmont mine that we announced a couple weeks ago. That 2.5 meters of 3760 grams per ton silver equivalent. And there was 2 other holes that both hit over 2,000 grams per ton silver equivalent grades. And those grades you just have to respect with follow-up holes, no matter what. So I think between each of those holes, between the 3 of them, and we're planning 9 or 10 total step outs around each of those holes. So 3 or 4 each, healthy step outs to really see if we can start building some ounces. And seeing how significant the mineralization could really be.
And I mean, you're certainly in an area, you mentioned Black Rock, you're also just in Nevada in general, because of all kinds of factors. There's lots of interest in safer jurisdictions. So Nevada is near the top of that list. Are you getting a lot of, do you think you're getting a fair bit of interest just because of sort of where you are in the context and area play type things? Like, is that a factor for Summa?
I think that's a good point. I mean, you think of Nevada, you think of big gold deposits. But the thing I always like to say, and I'm sure you've all heard me say this before, is Nevada was originally known as the Silver State, and that's because of this district and another district. So I think Nevada is a great place to be for all of those questions, or for all of those reasons that you just listed. And there is a lot of silver to find here, especially in districts like this. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for the rundown of what is happening and what is to come, and look forward to keeping up with the news, Galen. Thanks.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Gwen.